Okay. So my name is Tipper Presley, and I live in the mountains of western North Carolina in a little community called Brasstown. And in 2008, I started a blog, Blind Pig and the Acorn, and that was to celebrate all things Appalachia. When you think about, from the food to the way we talk, music, my family's very musical. And so I've been, that blog is still active. I've been doing that, won a few awards over the years I'm very proud of. My biggest achievement is I am in the dictionary of the Dictionary of Southern Appalachian English. I'm used as a reference in there, so that's really great. And then in 2020, I started a YouTube channel kind of to mirror what I was doing on the blog, Celebrating Appalachia, and I've done very well with it. I have over almost 260,000 subscribers there helping me celebrate Appalachia. And I guess in a nutshell, I'm just plumb foolish about Appalachia, and that's what I've made my life's work.
What is the origin of Appalachian dialect?
Well, it's really varied, and it kind of depends on who you ask. It's one of those things, but so much of it come with, you think about the first settlers that come, whether they come from the, Scotland, Ireland, a lot of the language, Britain, a lot of the language come with them. Different parts of Appalachia, like where I'm at, predominantly that would be the influence is the Scotland, Ireland influence, but farther north there's like a huge German influence, so a lot of times you'll find German words still in use there. So but mostly in a nutshell it come with the people that settled in the Appalachian Mountains.
Different regions make up the dialect.
Well, Appalachia, the Appalachian mountain chain, it reaches like from upper New York all the way to Alabama, the mountains, the upper part of Alabama. But the Appalachian Regional Commission, if you could Google that later and look, they have a map where they designate all the counties and that make up the Appalachia, and it actually reaches kind of outside those mountain regions in a few areas. And they share the criteria of how they determine that, but it's I like people to refer to that map because it does extend, I believe. Like if you lived right up next to the mountains, chances are your county, whatever it is, your little town is going to be very, very similar to the one that's more mountainous right there. So I would suggest you look at that. It's Appalachian Regional Commission, and they have a map, really big, nice map that you can look at and see the region. But it's far more, I will say it's far larger than most people think. They think of it being Michael Montgomery, who was a linguist, talking about the dialect. Wonderful, wonderful work he did. He's passed away now. But he'd talked to someone one time that said, they thought of it as this nether region. And then when they began to learn about it, they lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is in Appalachia. It was like they thought it had to be somewhere real remote. They didn't realize that they were right there in Appalachia too.
All right, hi, my name is Rachel Cornell. I'm the speech language pathologist for Southern Local School Districts. I service kids from preschool through 12th grade who have communication needs.
I just have a couple of questions for today. So how do accents in Appalachia differ from accents like across the country?
Well, in Appalachia, there's a lot of dialect that we have. In some parts, we don't have all the Appalachian dialect, just some here where we live. A lot of the standardized tests I give students take into account for that. So if they do have an Appalachian dialect and it's not pronounced correctly on the test, we do not count off for that. You just have to sort of know what's typical in your area.
How does the pronunciation of some words in the Appalachian dialect differ from regular dialect?
In Appalachia, a lot of times we use some more slang, as people would say. Like, for example, hollow, we say holler. Yellow, yeller, I hear some kids say that. Also, sometimes we insert an R into our words, so like wash instead of wash, or Washington instead of Washington. And then also sometimes it can affect the grammar, not just the pronunciation. So you might see something like instead of like the hardest worker, we might say he's like the workingest man in the city or something like that. So it can affect grammar in addition to just our pronunciations.
I'm Michelle O'Malley. I'm a professor of linguistics at Ohio University in Athens, and primarily focused in sociolinguistic content. So I teach a lot of content that focuses on phonetics and phonology and sound systems, but also in sociolinguistics. So we look at the way that English sounds different among different communities of speakers, why we make modifications to the way we talk, and I do research into that as well. Okay, so your question then was about how Ohio's variant is different from other parts of Appalachia, is that right? First of all, I would compliment you on recognizing that Appalachian English is not the same everywhere you go. And I would encourage you to think about it as not just Appalachian, but also a little bit Midwestern, a little bit upland South. Southern Ohio is a unique dialect area because we have a lot of influence from the West Virginia variants of Appalachian English. We're geographically really close to them, but we're also economically and geographically close to Central Ohio, which is a really, it's called a Midland variant, and it sounds a lot more like what you might hear on the news because it's what dialecticians call, or dialectologists rather call, a general Midland or a general American variant. So you would probably hear a much more obvious urban and rural divide in the Ohio variants of Appalachian English than you would hear, say, in West Virginia. West Virginia, incidentally, is the only state that the Appalachian Regional Commission recognizes as entirely Appalachian, right? The Ohio portion, it's not the whole state. It's just a portion of the state, a handful of counties, 29 or so counties. But yeah, a lot of influence from the Midwestern variants and Midland variants. So we have some differences. People who live in the city, people who live in the country tend to sound different, but they find common ground when they choose vocabulary that everybody recognizes, but their pronunciations will be different.